Hi, I am Beth Bruce, and this session is called Not This, But That. No More Phonics and Spelling Worksheets. So don't get stuck in this trap of repetition without transfer. Think about like spelling and decoding as having there's like a factory model, right? And that's like really in which students are just like the recipients of knowledge just being dumped on their heads. Instead, kids need authentic opportunities to apply or practice phonics or word knowledge and real reading and real writing. And that's just not something that you can find on Teacher Pay Teacher or in a phonics workbook. Um, when I first taught kindergarten, many, many years ago, I had my students spell words for a test, and I just didn't push them to see the words as something that they applied to their reading and their writing. Many of them were not transferring their ability to spell to their reading because clearly I didn't really expect it. And they weren't using their knowledge of decoding um, of decoding words when they were reading because I didn't show them how to do it. Um, in many spelling and phonics worksheets, they don't allow for that really essential discussion. And most effective practices require not only time for students to think, but also time for them to talk with others on what they're learning. So in Lake Orion, we really rejected the traditional methods of teaching phonics. Um, which is really in the past we just kind of had it was really just a potpourri of skills. We were pulling things from Teacher Pay Teacher. Teachers were pulling things from different worksheets, something that they got from the teacher next door, and we really just didn't have like a clear trajectory of how to teach these skills. And it wasn't really working in favor of the most effective type of word study. So with that, I would say trust in our units of study, phonics units. So when I was fresh out of college, I was a long-term sub in a kindergarten room, and I actually had a wedding for the vowel teams. I was so proud of myself. The kids got all dressed up, and I passed out Hershey Kisses for the kiss at the wedding. And yeah, the kids were all smiling. Well, I was giving them candy. They were all having fun. They were entertained. But now that I think back on it, were they learning? Hmm, I don't think so. And there is really a difference between true academic engagement and entertainment. Like spelling games and fun phonics activities, such as hop to the letter on the lily pad when I call it out, right? They just really fail to motivate students to hold on to their learning or really learn in the first place because their experience is decontextualized from real reading and real writing. A student who completes his phonics worksheet is following directions, but they're not doing deep level thinking or really demonstrating independence. When we give every student the same worksheet, we communicate the unfair expectation that they all can and all should learn the same words at the same time. And some don't bother doing the worksheet because they can't, or they avoid it altogether, and they maybe even say, I won't, right? Or on the other hand, other students wonder why they're doing it because they already know the content. So even if they're cute or if they're free on TPT, at its best, worksheets can be inefficient. So by relying on our developmental spelling inventories, we can tell where kids are at and what they need to know. Let's talk about these words that we call snap words in Lake Orion, uh, or high frequency words, otherwise known as. These words make up 50 to 75% of the words that our kids are reading. And kids need to be able to recognize these words quickly and effortlessly as a skill to be a lifelong reader. Sight word reading improves comprehension and fluency. And when these words can be read automatically, it frees up more time for them to spend on decodable text and phonetic patterns, which really, of course, increases fluency. Let's talk about the importance of teaching high frequency words within context. It's a very important word. Let's make these words stick. When we fail to teach within context, we fail to show students the purpose and the importance of these words that we need our students to master so badly. In our fast-paced world of teaching, it is really easy for us to repeat the same instructional practice over and over again, right? And when some of our kids aren't making growth in sight word recognition, we might panic. But it's really time to take a step back and try something new, right? Um, you know, and this is the new. Our phonics curriculum models explicit, systematic teaching of words within context. You guys, this information isn't just my opinion. I've been researching this topic of teaching these words for a couple years now. I've been looking in academic book after book on literacy, and every book really says the same thing. The teaching of sight words needs to happen within a context. Um, kids can only learn about 40 words memorized before they hit a wall. So that is why, they may know the word one week, and then the next week when they're writing it during writer's workshop or trying to read it in a book during guided reading, they don't know what the word is because their brain can only hold so much rote, right? But that is why the units of study for phonics has us teaching sight words in this systematic way, right? Then once you do that, you can add them to your word wall, you continue to reference them throughout your day, and the kids will continue to see them in their books and practice writing them during writer's workshop. So here I wanted you to compare two different activities. And the first one I'm sure is pretty familiar. I know I used to do this activity a lot. This is sight word bingo, which is essentially a game of flashcards. And the second one, this would be a roll and read the word activity using dice. So if the child rolls a 1, they would clap the sight word, clap the syllables in the word. 2, they would draw the shape of the word. Drawing the shape of the word is a really good skill. It helps them to make like an orthographic map of the word, in a visual map of the word in their head. Especially if they're looking up on a word wall and you have the words outlined with the shape, that also supports them with finding that word on the word wall. Number 3 would be like to take the word and break it up. Number 4 would be to say the word in a sentence. If you roll a 5, say the sounds of the word really slowly. B, t. And then 6 would be count the how many letters are in the word. So anything that forces them to really focus in on the word, because really we need our kids to have like at least 4 exposures of each word so that it really becomes permanent in their long-term memory. So next you're going to have a reflection question just to reflect on these 2 activities. Next, you're going to watch some clips from Don Burke's classroom. This was a couple years ago. This was right before COVID. And Dawn noticed that a lot of her students were struggling with reading due to not having enough um, high frequency words in their sight word bank. So she decided that she was going to take a couple weeks to do what we, if you will, called a sight word boot camp. And the students self-assessed. They chose the words that they wanted to learn. Then those words were placed on cards with rings, and they also were allowed to choose like a me word, just a fun word, a content word that they also wanted to learn. And then throughout the 2 weeks, she would involve them like in a little mini lesson, and then they would go off to these centers. And she didn't want the centers to just be worksheets where they were, doing rainbow writing with words or just simply writing the words on whiteboards. So with some brainstorming, she came up with these amazing centers, and I'm just going to show you a couple clips from the kids doing these centers in the classroom, and then we'll do some reflection work after. I'd like you just to watch this little clip one more time and just think with the lens of engagement. How are these, what is different? How are these students engaged in this activity? Does it require some deeper thinking? So trust in the units of study. Teach into your component work. We can engage them during interactive writing with and we can teach into a specific skill based on our assessments. Use your developmental spelling inventory, have them pull out one piece of writing and set it on top of their writing folder, and walk around at a quick glance and see what skills your students need, and focus on those in your component work, right? One less worksheet can give kids more opportunities for reading, writing, or even play, which they so desperately need. Uh, in a lot of these worksheets, especially like the fill in the blanks, the prompt writing worksheets, you have to think like, who's doing the work? The teacher. The teacher provided the prompt, and all the kids have to do is fill in the blank. They don't have to really, there's no deep thinking involved. There's no planning process. It's it's really just ineffective. So just because it's cute, remember, it's it's not going to support them in that ongoing work and that transfer piece. Um, so and also remember, like, use that phonics small group book and pull them into small groups, or just pull them into strategy small groups to reteach the skills that they may be struggling with. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk to you just about some readings that I would like you to do to end our work. So for homework, I would like you to do some reading. If you have the K1 phonics book, the guide to the phonics units, you will find the high frequency reading on page 37. If you have a K2 book, you will find it on page 39. And then I would like you to read about the special activities in our phonics curriculum. And that would entail like shared reading, guess the covered word, doing word sorts, making words, and then again, the interactive writing and interactive editing will be included in there. So you can read about that again, just to make sure that you have it down, right? So if you have a K1 book, that will be on page 48. And then if you have the K2 book, you will find that reading on page 56. And it's only about 8 pages long for the special activities. And the high frequency words is only a couple pages, but it's full of really, really good stuff. And in the end, all of these activities are really going to be supportive of your students' writing success.